Hi, I'm Jasmine Madison, and I just want to share with you a few classroom management secrets that I have picked up in my 30 years experience as a teacher of middle school, high school, and also as a school leader in Jamaica. I'm sharing my credentials with you so that you can see how much experience and qualification I have, but I also want you to realize that having been in the classroom for 30 years and having all that training behind my name does not guarantee classroom management success. Now, many people believe that classroom management and classroom control are the same thing. But classroom management is different from classroom control. In classroom management, you have structure. The teacher is prepared for eventualities. The atmosphere is calmer because there are procedures in place. The students are more settled because they understand what the culture and climate of the classroom is. The students share responsibility for the classroom environment because the teacher has established that from beginning. And the classroom management plan controls the students, not the teacher necessarily. Now, where there is control, the difference is that the teacher is unprepared for eventualities because it's a day by day thing, not a structure that is established and maintained. There is little or no structure. The students do not know what to do in situations, so there is confusion many times. The teacher is constantly reminding students without doing anything, not following the classroom management plan, just depending on their mood for the day or how they feel or the class. So there's no real consistent structure in place. And the students do not share in the responsibility for the classroom culture and climate. Now, I'm just going to share a few tips that I have picked up along the way from some professionals. And I want to highlight today Miss Dietrich Brown. I hope she doesn't mind me using her as an example, but Miss Dietrich Brown is a double amputee and a veteran English teacher, but she manages her class so much better than many able-bodied people with two hands and 2 feet. And it all goes down to the structure that she establishes in her classroom from day one. You pass her classroom, you hardly hear any noise, students are settled, and she has but one leg and one arm, and she rolls around in a wheelchair. But she establishes the culture from the very beginning, and the students respect her. And she has taught classes with up to 30 students. You don't have any fights. There are no disruptions in there. And some of the students who go in other classes and tear it up will sit in Mrs. Brown's class, do what they have to do, produce their work. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but the structure is in place in her classroom. And if she can do it with one arm and one leg, then someone with 2 arms and 2 legs should be better able to control the class, manage the class, pardon me. But we also get to realize that it's not necessarily your physical strength or capabilities that controls the class, but the structure that you set. The next person that taught me something about classroom management was John Huggins. He was a principal in Sumter School District at some point, and he taught me that the best classroom management strategy is good instruction. Teachers do not realize that there's a link between the management of the class and the instruction is key. If you have a well-planned lesson, and as Mr. Corey would say, a detailed lesson with everything you plan to say and do, then it makes it easier for you to manage what's going on because you're one step ahead of the game. But if you're winging the lesson and trying to manage the kids at the same time, then it's not going to work. You must plan ahead. I've heard some people say, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do today. I never put myself in that position. Maybe they can do it and handle that. I cannot. Even after 30 years in the classroom, I have to know exactly what I'm going to do at every step of the way in my lesson before I begin. Otherwise, I may as well just don't start. And people might say, well, you've been teaching so long, you should be able to come up with a lesson at the drop of a hat. Not necessarily. Sometimes I have to improvise, like when we have no internet or when the computer is down or many of the children are somewhere else. And I normally turn it into a discussion or let's read something. But as far as planning a good lesson for 90 minutes is concerned, I don't try to wing it. Even if I have to stay later in the afternoon to plan my lesson, so that I know exactly what I'm going to be doing at every stage of the game. That is what I'm going to do, because that helps me. I don't know about anyone else, but that helps me to have better management and a better structure in my classroom. Miss Caldwell taught me this. She said that um, it starts day one. I remember when we both taught middle school, and I would have the same kids that she had, and they would be tearing up my class. And she would have them calmly sitting there, walking in the hallway without making a sound. And I asked her, I said, Miss Caldwell, what do you do differently? She said, it starts day one. And I want you to notice that although I have been in the classroom for so long, I am always trying to learn. I'm always trying to find out how I can be better. Um, I ask people questions. I observe others. Some teachers don't want to watch anyone. They think that they know everything. But I'm always trying to learn how I can be better at what I do. And so I copy what I see. I ask questions. And I try to, look at what other teachers are doing, what works for them. I remember one time, without having been asked, I walked around the school and I observed the teachers that were considered good teachers because of their classroom management skills, and I asked permission to sit in their class. Nobody asked me to do this. I just remembered names that were always being called, and I went to watch them to see what they did, and I used what they did to help me in my classroom, because none of us is at that point where we are so good that we cannot learn something from someone. So it begins day one. You set the structure just the way you want it. You help the children to understand that this is my classroom, this is how I am. And in order for me to successfully teach you and you to successfully learn in this class, this is how it has to be. And if you set that tone in the beginning, they understand that you're an individual. You're not trying to be like everyone else, but this is how you are, and this is what works for you. And I promise you that they will give you what you ask for. Miss Barringer was another educator whom I respected because she never raised her voice. She spoke very quietly, very calmly. I guess she was trying to preserve her singing voice because she sings really well. But I understood from her that you didn't have to be aggressive and hostile and loud with the children, that you could be as calm and controlled as possible, and that would work. And I have another colleague that I would mention, Mr. Samuels, who he was the one they call cool, calm, and collected. And he had his moments when he would go off on the children, but he was controlled. So his environment was in such a way that the students conformed to what he asked them to do, because they knew that if they did not, then there were consequences that were going to be applied. A rule of thumb to follow when it comes to classroom management is to be fair, to be firm, and to be consistent. Many teachers aren't fair. They try to have favorites. That is not going to work. At the same time, you want to be considerate of the students' individual situations, their invisible backpacks, and their learning needs, their individual needs, their personalities, and what makes them tick. You also want to be fair. You want to be firm, because students respect strict teachers. It doesn't matter what they tell you. They respect a teacher who is strict, but you cannot be so strict that you're too rigid and you're inflexible. They are not going to respect that. And be consistent. Don't let your classroom management depend on the mood, the day, how you feel, whether you have a headache. Just set the plan in place, have a structure, and let that structure work for you. I am a lifelong learner, like I mentioned, and I'm always trying to do better. And many teachers fail at classroom management because they feel they know everything. They feel that they are going to look bad if they ask for help, and they feel that they know how to handle the students, and they don't. I always teach the procedures and let the management plan manage the class. And I create a culture of respect, love, and caring from day one. And I'm not saying this as if I have arrived. I'm saying this because over the years I have picked up on the strategies that work. And if you try them, then they will likely work for you as well. So just a few barriers to classroom management are the myths that are there. Many people have some myths to classroom management. For example, they think that honors kids do not require as much structure as other kids, or they're easier to manage, or if the class is small. You can have a class of 5 kids who tear it up, and you can have a class of 30 kids who will follow what you ask them to do. It all depends on the structure. It doesn't depend on the number of kids. It does not depend on who the kids are. It depends on the structure that you set, and that is what works for me. Parents is another barrier, but parents just want to know that we care about their children. And if we show that we care, then parents won't be bothering us. They will be more supportive. I know that's not a whole scale situation, but for the most part, most parents just want to know you care about their students and they will cooperate. Fear is a big thing, especially at the high school level. And I know that many of our students are bigger than we are, but they are kids. They are children. And if we remember that at all times, then it makes a big difference as to how we handle them. I'm amazed. I'm just 5 feet short. I wouldn't even use the word tall. And I teach footballers who are bigger than me, 6 foot, way up over me. And I have to look up at them. But the respect that they have for me, because they know I care for them, it makes a big difference as to how they respond to me. I remember one boy was in my class one day and he was on his phone, and I went over there and I said, you need to get the phone in your bag, because you know you're not supposed to have your phone. And he said, Miss Madison, give me a little break this morning. I've had a bad morning. And I said, okay, I understand that you're going to have a bad morning every now and again, but the school rule is the school rule. Put the phone up. All right. And he put the phone away. And that's not the only case. It depends on how you respond to them, how you treat them. We all have our children, and just because they turn 20 or 25 does not mean that they become monsters. They are still our children. So if we look at the children in our classes as kids, children, they're trying to learn. They want to respect you. But if you try to go down to their level and act like them, then they're going to give you back what you do not want from them, because they don't see you being an adult in the situation. Mentioned before, failure to plan the lessons. You can't wing your lesson and control your class at the same time, no matter how long you have been in the classroom. A carefully planned lesson is the best bet. Not knowing how to say no. Students will respect you when you say no. I say no to them sometimes even when I want to say yes, just to let them understand that I am not going to be run over. And it gets to a point where they will come up to the desk and, Miss Madison, I really need to use the restroom. I know you're probably going to say no, but I really have to go. And it has gotten to a place now where I know that some students, when they ask, they really have to go. At the same time, you have students who will ask me to go to the restroom, and I'll say, can you give me 20 minutes until this activity is finished? I don't want you to miss it. And many times they will sit there until the class ends and never ask again. But how you know the student really wants to go is when they say, can I go now? Can I go now? I really need to go. But we need to, set boundaries and tell them no sometimes. And don't just send them because they ask. You send in the same child, the same time every day, and don't realize that they're just using you to leave the class when they really don't need to. Challenge their need to go to the restroom. Question why they need to go to the nurse without getting too personal. And don't just keep saying yes. Being too strict, and I know this might sound ironic, I'm strict, but I'm also understanding and compassionate, and the students know that. We have a headband issue where they're not supposed to wear it, but some girls have hair days when they need to wear their headbands. And I remember cases where students have pulled me outside to say, I need to tell you something. I go out there and they show me, look at my hair. I really cannot take it off right now. And I say, okay, how long do you think it's going to be like that? And they say, I'll try not to wear it back tomorrow. And they don't wear it back tomorrow. So yes, you are strict, but you're also understanding and showing compassion, because we need that from the principal and administrators as well. Not building relationships is another one. And people think building relationships with students means that you're going to get down to their level and get in their personal business and all of that. But it's asking them, how are you? It's asking them, how's your mom? How's the baby? How's your brother? How did the game go? Did you enjoy your weekend? Did you do anything fun? Who went out of town? And get to know their personal interests. Compliment your clothes. Tell them their hair looks nice. And talk to them sometimes. And they will come to you and share stuff with you that they probably wouldn't tell anyone else. Today I had a student walk up to me at the end of the class when everybody had left and said, I need to show you something. And on his phone he said, this is my Thanksgiving. And he had a baby and a girlfriend. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't know that. And he said, don't tell anyone else. I said, I won't. But I was so excited that he felt good sharing that with me. And I'm not sure which other teachers he would be comfortable sharing that with. But that's because when he's not here, I wonder, what's going on? Where have you been? I know he likes to go to Florida. So I say, did you go to Florida? How was that? Did you enjoy it? Ah, yeah, we went to the beach. Build relationships by having discussions with our children. And it makes it easier for them to respect your rules and conform to what you ask them to do. I mentioned before not being willing to learn from others, not doing self-evaluation, and that's different from self-analysis, as you'll see in the next bullet. And someone taught me that self-evaluation is me asking myself, what can I do differently? And that's where you go to ask other people, do the research, read Marzano, watch Harry Wong. But self-analysis is, what's wrong with me? Why they listen to this teacher and they don't listen to me? That's not healthy. It's best to ask yourself, okay, how can I change what I'm doing for the benefit of my class? That's how we do self-evaluation. And again, I'm going to reiterate, poor lesson planning is a major reason why our classroom management plan fails. So let's debunk some myths about classroom management. Other honors kids are not easier to manage. Honors kids need structure, use a timer, and be firm. Another myth, they will listen simply because I am the teacher. They don't listen simply because it's their parents. You have to teach students how to listen to you. I've taught my students the difference between being silent and being quiet. I don't talk above them. I tell them I'm not going to compete with anyone to talk. And when they come in my class, I let them know I'm not going to tolerate that talking. And I let them understand why. I explain why. And they for the most part, they cooperate. We assume that they know how to respect authority. They don't all know that. So sometimes we have to teach them, and sometimes we have to explain why it's important. Another myth is that they will hate you if you are firm. Now, to be honest, my kids don't ever like me in the first 2 weeks. They complain, they run to the principal, and they tell their parents, oh, I'm too strict. But by week 2, by the end of week 2 or week 3, they start to realize, wait a minute, this lady really cares about us. And so it becomes much easier. And I know they don't like me in the first part, but by the end of the class, then they start calling, Miss Madison, we only have 1 week left with you. Y'all didn't want to come in here, and now y'all don't want to leave. But that's because I've set my standards, and I am not going to lower them to accommodate, their little whims and fancies. And they respect it after a while. And the last one is, they will give up if you challenge them. Challenge your students to behave. Challenge your students to do well. But it all depends on which child and what you're challenging them to do. Because a child will get 90 and I'll say, 90? Why didn't you get 95? And they'll go, oh, Miss Madison, that's an A. Well, for you could get a 95. Matter of fact, you could get 100. And they say, okay, next time. But another student will get 60 and you'll go, man, you got 60. High five. Here's candy. Because that's the best that child can do. And some students, when they sit for the whole class and they don't talk, I say, man, you went a whole half hour without saying anything. Good job. You're improving. So they will not hate you. You have to challenge the students and teach them not to settle for mediocrity. So to wrap up now, because I don't want this to be too long, these are some golden nuggets I want to leave with you. 1, set the atmosphere from day 1. 2, say no unless there's a good reason to say yes, and be consistent with that no. If you're going to tell Johnny no, then you have to tell Mary no as well. Plan detailed bell-to-bell lessons with enough rigor to challenge the students. Don't give them something that will give them too much time to talk, but also plan talk time in the lesson so that they can vent and get things off their chest as well. And I do a lot of discussions, and kids love that, but it doesn't work with everyone. Walk around and monitor. Walk around and monitor. Get up off the desk. Get up from off the chair and walk around and monitor. Let your presence be felt in the room so that the students know that it's not going to be easy for them to get away with things. Sometimes they wonder how I catch them on the phone, or how I catch them eating, or how I catch them doing something they're not supposed to do, playing a game. Because although I might not be everywhere in the room. My eye is everywhere in the room. And I stand at the front many times, but I am aware of what's going on. And when I want to sit down, I sit on a stool at the front where I can see what's going on. And I walk around from time to time just to check the computers, just to check to make sure everybody's on point. And they understand that. So for the most part, I do not have students who are off task doing what they feel like doing. Do not slack off when they are defiant. Stand up to them. They are children. Stand up to them and let them know you're not going to allow them to run over you. Don't argue with them. Don't fight with them. Don't threaten to write them up, because what happens when you threaten to write up a student, and this is for the American audience, if you threaten to write a student up in front of a class, the student is going to challenge you to say, okay, I don't care. And then you're going to be forced to reestablish your authority to say, well, I'm the teacher in the classroom, and nobody wins. So try to get the student to stop the behavior. Encourage first and admonish and ask nicely. And then if you see that they are defiant, then you can decide, okay, do I call the administrator? Do I just let it go until the end of class? Do I speak to the student, have a parent conference or a student conference? Do I have a guidance referral for this one, or how do I handle it? But a verbal battle between you and the student in the classroom is not good for you or the student. Call an administrator if you need to. That is what they're there for. We have to know what our limitations are, and we know what we cannot handle. Some students I am not even going to try to handle. Come get them up my class, because it's not worth sacrificing or holding the other students hostage because one student is being disruptive. Let the administrators take the child out, and then you teach the other 20-something that are left there. But don't have a verbal battle with one student and no teaching is going on. At the same time, do not call administration for small things. Remember, you are the manager of your class. You are in charge. So you need to put something in place to let the children understand that they should listen to you. And I'm just saying that if you have lost that battle from day one, you have lost that battle for the whole semester or the whole year. So it's hard to fix it in the middle of the semester, hard to fix it in the middle of the year. So D-Day is day one. I wish you all the success in the world when it comes to classroom management, because great classroom management is one of the keys to successful teaching and learning.